Hello friends, how are you? My nickname for my channel is Kim Stories. I hope you like the stories I tell. Don't forget to subscribe and like. It is said that in the old days in one of the small towns, there lived a toy maker called Geppetto, who was very skilled in making attractive and cheerful games, which won the satisfaction of all children. Young children loved his beautiful and colorful toys, and they were very welcome. One day, that old man Geppetto wished to have his own child, and on that day he decided to make a doll in the form of a beautiful boy, and it was by his own decision that he would deal with him, his real child whom he wished to have. Geppetto went to the woods to look for a log, and soon found a pine log. He was very happy when he found it, and said, "It's the perfect log I've been looking for." Geppetto immediately picked him up, carried him on his back like a small child, and took him home. And as soon as he arrived, he proceeded to sculpt with his skilled hands. And little by little the pine trunk began to form. First the doll's head, then arms and legs, and finally, after much effort, the beautiful boy doll was formed extremely. Geppetto held the doll in his hands and said, "I made you at last. You remind me of all my childhood days. My son, I will not sell you to anyone, and I will call you Pinocchio." And when night came, Geppetto was very tired, so he put Pinocchio very close to him on his bed. Geppetto fell into a deep sleep due to the severity of his fatigue and exhaustion. While Geppetto was in a deep sleep, a fairy suddenly appeared. The fairy waved her magic wand. "Geppetto, you have made so many children happy with your beautiful and inspiring toys, and now it's my turn. I will reward you with a very special gift for all your noble deeds." Pinocchio jumped for joy on the bed, bowed to the fairy in respect, and then thanked her, and was so grateful that she made him alive, and said that he could walk and dance. The fairy told him, "Yes, my dear friend, you are now alive, and you can do whatever you want, but you must always be a good child. Never disturb your father, and listen to everything he says, and listen to his commands, and if you become a good boy, you will have a very special gift from me." And Pinocchio was so happy that he wanted to wake his father to tell him that he was alive. But the fairy told him that his father was tired and that he should leave him asleep and not disturb him until morning. And when the morning came, Geppetto woke up from his sleep and saw Pinocchio sitting next to him on the bed, staring at him and blinking his eyes. Geppetto could not believe his eyes. His heart almost flew with joy from the intensity of his happiness when he saw the doll he had made, with all hope in which life came like humans. Pinocchio hugged his chest and expressed how happy he was. They spent the most beautiful, happy times together until the time came to enter school. Geppetto wanted to raise his son, whom he wished for from the world, and when it was time for school, he wanted his son to go to it. And despite not having enough money, he sold some of his possessions and brought his son Pinocchio school clothes, books, pens, and all the supplies. His father, Geppetto, asked him to go to school and not go anywhere else, and to come home as soon as the school day was over, and not to worry about his old father. Pinocchio promised him that, and while he was going to school, he found a gathering of people. His curiosity led him to go to them and find out about the matter. So he found a circus and wanted to enter him. And when he reached the door, the man did not enter him until after he paid all the money that he had in his possession. Pinocchio entered the circus and saw a magician coming out of his hat with a lot of rabbits, and he saw a bear driving a wheel, and it was time for the puppet show. And when Pinocchio noticed the people very interested in dolls, he saw in himself the preference over the static dolls. With the love of these nice people, so he went up on the stage and began to sing and dance. There were those who watched him closely, especially when the gold coins rained down on him, the owner of the circus, after seeing talking and moving dolls without external control, saw in front of his eyes the enormous wealth, and vowed to Pinocchio not to let him go from the circus again. Indeed, he caught him and put him in a cage, and, despite the pleas of Pinocchio to leave him for fear of his father, the owner of the circus did not have mercy on him. He spent the whole night crying with regret and remorse because he did not listen to his father's words and did not do what he asked of him. Suddenly, a light appeared in front of his eyes, and if the fairy appeared in front of him again, she asked him to stop crying because he was bleeding her heart on him, and she asked him why he was crying, and Pinocchio told her that while he was going to school, he found 3 men who grabbed him tightly and put him inside this cage, and prevented him from returning to his father, Geppetto. Pinocchio noticed that whenever he spoke a lie, his nose grew bigger and longer, and when he asked the fairy about the reason for that, she told him the reason because he was telling her a lie. She advised him to be a good, kind-hearted, honest and truthful child, and he promised her that he would not return to such matters. While Pinocchio was returning to his father's house, Geppetto, he found a cart driven by a very wonderful white horse, and found the chariot driver offering him a delivery to his home. Before Pinocchio offered the driver and climbed into the cart, despite the discomfort of his conscience, sweets that have all kinds of sweets around the world, and Pinocchio's curiosity led him again to go to the city of sweets and taste all kinds of sweets. And when he arrived, he found it, indeed, a city full of greens and cheerful colors, and the driver's sincerity before his eyes, and began to eat and could not help himself. As the first day passed and the second day came, Pinocchio noticed the disappearance of the children who were around him, and he found many donkeys, and from within the day he noticed the appearance of donkey ears and a tail on his body. Here he understood what is happening to the children in this strange city, so he ran away, and when he returned to his father's house he did not find him. About it at sea. Without thinking of him, Pinocchio jumped into the sea in search of his father, Geppetto, who felt guilty and bad towards him, and he was very longing for him, and because he was made of wood, he floated over the water and kept swimming and swimming, and calling at the top of his voice to his father. Suddenly a huge whale appeared behind him and swallowed him at once. The fairy eventually turns him into a real child because of his promise and being a good son who was able to protect his father despite mortal dangers